Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hey, you guys, this is Kelly Covert, and you are listening to In Her Voice. I have an amazing guest today who's on to talk about her 3-word rebellion and how you can make one of your own. And you guys, this conversation is pure gold, especially if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, or any person who is looking to make an impact in this world. And I believe that all of you who are listening are looking for that you believe that you are here for a reason and that you want to create an impact in your world. So this is so good. My guest, Michelle Mazur, was able to bring everything down to its pure essence and just distill it to this beautiful, simple way of understanding your impact and your passion and bringing it all together. Michelle Mazur, PhD, founded Communication Rebel on the belief that communication changes the world. So that's what she helps business owners and speakers do: rebel against the status quo to make a difference, one compelling message at a time. She is the author of 3 books, including the newly released 3-Word Rebellion, Create a One-of-a-Kind Message That Grows Your Business into a Movement, and the host of the Rebel Rising podcast. She lives in Seattle, Washington, with her adoring husband, 3 obsessive felines, and a huge collection of Duran Duran memorabilia. Can't you just tell that she's fun? I mean, really, like I want to be her friend. I am her friend, but I want to be her friend in real life, not just in the digital world. So I'm really excited to bring you this interview with Michelle Mazur. Michelle Mazur, I'm so excited to have you on In Her Voice.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I am thrilled to be here.
Oh my gosh. Well, we are talking about such a fun and exciting and interesting topic today, and that is what you call your 3-word rebellion. And even those words like get me excited to share this with everyone. So let's just dive right in today, because I want to make sure we spend as much time as we can on the meat of what this is. So why don't you just start with like what is a 3-word rebellion?
A 3-word rebellion is really that one-of-a-kind message that encapsulates the change that you want to create for your audience, and that helps you grow your business. So that's the elevator pitch of what a 3-word rebellion is. It makes people curious about what you're doing in the world. It makes them compelled to act, to find out more. And really, it's like that hook. It's like your start with why, your 5-second rule that calls in the right people and gets them to act.
And who wouldn't want that? What business person wouldn't want that, right?
Yes, because that is, one of the things, and how this book came about is, and how this framework came about, is that I realized that there was this similarity between social movements and really successful entrepreneurs. Social movements are amazing at encapsulating the change they want to create in just a few words. If you think about Black Lives Matter or Me Too or Never Again, and entrepreneurs do the same thing. When we look at those super successful people like Simon Sinek or Mel Robbins or Sally Hogshead, Tim Ferriss, they encapsulate what they're about in just 3 words.
I love that. So how did you create this? How did the 3-word rebellion for you come into reality?
Yeah, so about well, it was December 2017. I had reached this inflection point in my business where I had been working with speakers for years. And although I love working with speakers and I'll always work with speakers, what I didn't love was the content that I was creating. I was talking about like how to make money with speaking, how to book speaking gigs, how to market yourself as a speaker. And for me, while that information is important, it is good, it is needed, it also wasn't why I was put on this earth, because I've always had this belief that communication changes the world. And so over that holiday, I noticed this pattern and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could take some of the questions around social movement theory and have my clients free write around it and see if it would help them come up with their core message. So I started experimenting with that. And then I had lunch with this amazing book coach. Her name's Jenny Nash. And I was telling her about this idea. And she was like, oh, Michelle, this is so good. She's like, you need to write a book about this. She's like, you can call it the 3-word speech. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And also, it was not at all right. Like, I was like, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, that's good, but it's not quite there yet. And I just let the idea percolate for a while. And it's so funny because it was so obvious. Like, I have this brand, it's Communication Rebel. I have the Rebel Rising podcast. And it just came to me. It's like, oh, I'm helping people craft their 3-word rebellion. And then as soon as that hit, I was like, oh, that's it. Like, it just felt amazing and completely draining at the same time because that message felt bigger than me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and what I like about that a lot is that you kind of let it sit. Mm-hmm. Like you let it brew a little bit. And I think sometimes we're so quick to either dismiss something or dive in before we've let that like steep a little bit.
Yeah. And I felt it was interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend, like before I realized the pattern and the 3-word rebellion, that I felt like there was something big that was sitting kind of outside of me that wanted to come through, but I didn't know what that thing was yet. And I just had that distinct feeling. And even with the framework itself, like once I had the idea for the 3-word rebellion, my clients were like, sure, we want to test that out. That sounds awesome. And I did a webinar, but for the book, like writing the book, like I didn't really start writing the book until like another 5 months because I needed it to percolate more. Mm-hmm. I needed to talk more about it and get to know that concept and that idea a bit more before I could set out defining what it was.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So let's talk about the word rebellion, because I think that the word rebel and the word rebellion has a lot of interesting connotations. And so why rebellion? Why rebel?
Yeah. So I work, and I myself am someone who works for change, right? Most of my clients, they are in the business of transformation. And for me, what rebellion means, it's tearing down old systems so that you can build something new. I mean, that's what social movements do. All movements are moving towards something and away from something else because you have to destroy in order to create. You have to be able to call out what is wrong with the current system and have some type of vision for what to create for the future. And for me, it was always this very natural thing. Like for years, I've been talking about like what makes you go on a rant. Like when I was speaking about speaking, that was like one of my questions I would ask the audience to help them really define who they are as a speaker. Like what makes you go on a rant? What do you really love? What do you want to change? Because that is when you're in the change making business, that is what needs to happen. You have to figure out what you're rebelling against and come up with a plan for something different.
I love that. And it's funny because my listeners will know this about me. Those of you who've been around for a while, I am a reformed good girl. I used to be all about being good and being right. And as I've aged and as I've come to know more about who I am, I realize I don't feel attached to that any longer. And the word rebel is very attractive to me because it feels powerful in a way that being good doesn't feel powerful.
Yeah, it feels like standing up. It feels like power. To me, when I think about a rebel, it's standing up, it's pointing out, hey, this isn't right. We should fix it. We should do something differently. And there's such power and confidence in there because it's not for everyone. Leading a rebellion is not for everyone. Turning your business into a movement is not for everyone. But for some people, it is the right thing for them and their business because of the impact and the difference they want to create in the world.
Yeah. And I think that that it's worth saying that it's okay if you don't feel like a rebel. Mm-hmm. Because for every leader, right? For every leader that is leading a rebellion, we need people to be a part of that.
Yes.
And that's just as valuable.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I have part of the book talks about stepping into the role of the rebel leader and getting your message out. And the thing is, if we want to make change, we can never do it on our own. We need other leaders in our rebellion. We need other followers. And I think a really great example of this, if you look at Simon Sinek and Start With Why, that became a phenomenon. It is part of our culture. It is part of our lexicon. And he's really let it go and it's become its own thing. And people have taken that mantle and they're talking about, oh, well, what's your why for your business? And there's coaching around finding out what your why is. So people have really run with that concept and they've become little leaders in his Start With Why movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then that's really how you create more and more impact. You have to be willing to release the ownership almost of it, right?
Yes. And I talk about that in the book because, it's so easy. Well, to give you an example, when I came up with this and I put it out there right away, people are like, well, aren't you worried somebody's going to steal this idea? And I'm like, no, I am not worried that somebody's going to steal this idea because eventually that's what I want. I want other people to be able to talk about this, to be able to use it in the world because the book helps me make the difference and the impact I want to make. I can't individually reach all of those people. So at some point, it's kind of a message like this is like having a child, right? You do the labor, you do the hard work, you do the strategy, you birth it, and now it's in the world and it gets to be its own being. And you have to let go of that control.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. So what are you rebelling against?
Oh, so much. I've always been rebelling against lots of different things. I'm definitely rebelling against the whole culture of internet dude bro marketing where the focus is on growth and scale at all costs in your 7-figure business and your 8-figure business. And here's my webinar template that will tell you how to have a 7-figure business. All of that is, to me, so soulless and meaningless. And it's not because I don't love money. I do love money, but I think money should be used for a purpose in the world. And we've gotten to a point where it's just everybody's messaging sounds the same. It's oh, this is how I made 6 figures. Oh, this is how I made 7 figures. Oh, this email system, blah, blah, blah. And business shouldn't be blah, blah, blah to me. It should really be about creating something bigger than yourself and having and making a difference. And recently I did a podcast episode where I was talking about significance and how I think what people are really craving now, it's not the money, but it is that significance. It is the legacy that we leave behind. It's our impact. And I noticed that because when I was seeing like some of those terrible Facebook ads about 7-figure webinar templates and whatnot, I would read the comments and people were skeptical, and rightly so, of what they're being offered. And it doesn't hold meaning. And, you know, it just blends in with the rest of the noise that's out there. So that's my big thing right now.
I love that. That really resonates with me because I am in a period of deeply trusting my own inner voice and intuition when it comes to my business. And in order to do that, one of the steps that I took was to unfollow and unsubscribe from so many, I mean, I'm talking hundreds of business accounts, even people that I know personally and that I enjoy, because it was not resonating with what I knew to be true for me. Yes. And I had to create space for myself to be able to trust me without feeling like I was having all of these other messages like bombarding me all day long.
Oh, yes. I totally understand that. And I went through something similar where I'm just like, I don't subscribe to that idea of scaling at all costs. And and I find the conversation about money, yes, I mean, that should kind of be a baseline if you're a business coach. You should help your clients make money. It shouldn't be like the be-all, end-all result of being a business coach or helping people scale. So, yeah, I've done some of that same type of purging because it doesn't serve me and it takes me away from hearing my own voice, which is where I believe like your message comes from. Like I believe that your 3-word rebellion already exists. It's in what you've been saying and what you've been creating. It's just that you're too close to it and your brain is too noisy to actually hear it. So that's why part of the reason why I wrote the book. I want you to hear yourself over all the noise.
Well, and that is my everything. I mean, that is what I believe in so much, that if we listen to our inner voice, everything that we need is there. And one of the beautiful things about the process that you take people through in your book to find their 3-word rebellion is through free writing, journaling. And I love journaling so much. It has been such a way for me to connect to my inner voice. But I'd love for you to talk more about like what you found in your work with clients happens when they begin to really give themselves enough space. And you recommend for each of the questions that you ask in your book, like 30 minutes of just stream of consciousness.
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't want my clients to be thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to get this right, because there is no right, there is no wrong. And I want to get to the essence of what they're actually thinking. So I recommend free writing. For some of my clients who are extroverts, I tell them to like talk it out and get it transcribed, or use something like Otter AI to like just talk and have it instantly transcribed. But it's so you can get your raw ideas out of your head and on to paper. And that, I mean, when they're on paper, then you can actually see them and notice the patterns and deal with the ideas. And when I'm doing this process, like I can always tell when a client is trying to like give me what she thinks I want
I call it
versus,
performing, right?
yes.
Like we perform when we journal sometimes.
Yes, and I have to go back and I'm like, well, there's some lovely things in here, but is this really what you think? Like, is this the real you? Is this all of your ideas? Is this everything you're rebelling against? Is this everything you want to create? And the answer is usually no, or the other kind of blinking red flag or red light when they're not really when they're being more performative is they start quoting other people in their free writing. And I'm like, I don't care what Brene Brown says. I want to know what you think. And so when we finally like get that unfiltered writing, for me, my background is research. So I have a PhD in communication and I am trained in quantitative and qualitative analysis. So I look at the words as almost like a data set where I'm trying to figure out like what patterns are there here? Like what do you keep saying again and again? Are there certain words? Are there certain phrases? And I'll like read through someone's free writing and I'm like, did you realize that you use the word power like 30 times in here? That seems very important.
Yeah.
And something that maybe we should explore using in your 3-word rebellion, but only when we get our ideas out of our head and onto paper, that's when we can truly work on finding our message, because we can look at it as a scientist would look at it.
Well, and this was the part that was so interesting to me, because I will admit, I feel like there's no part of my brain that's a science part. And, I am all about journaling and being in that moment, but I don't very often go back and analyze what I've written. And I thought to myself, well, this is a new way of thinking about this, of approaching what you're learning, what you're hearing from your inner voice. It's just a different kind of system than I've ever used. And I'm really excited to try it. And did this just come from how you learned how to do research? I mean, I would have never thought of doing this.
I think so, because I always felt like the one big strength that I have is research. And it was one thing I wasn't ever bringing into my business. And I was always curious, like, how can I bring my research skills into my business? And when I first started with the free writing and I started reading through my clients' responses, I was like, oh, I'm actually doing thematic analysis on this, because it's natural to me. Like I'm like, oh, I'm looking for themes and looking for words and patterns. And that was like this aha moment. I'm like, oh, I'm treating this like I would treat a research project. How interesting is that? And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, you could actually just look at your writing from an objective standpoint and pull out the themes and the patterns and the words that you use again and again to help you find the message. Because I feel like messaging is one of those things in business that's one of the most difficult things to do. And so we go to these marketing people and they hand us what they think our message is, and it never quite feels right. And with this approach, it's really coming from the person. And then it's just taking that and seeing it as a researcher would see it, with that just that lens of objectivity.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you actually go through the step-by-step process of how to do this. So if you're like me and you're like, what? My brain doesn't work like that. You've actually like listed out like, this is what you do. And then you go with your highlighter and then you do this. And I really appreciated that, because I wouldn't know how to do it otherwise.
Yeah. Because here's the thing about the book. It's actually teaching you a little bit about thematic analysis. Surprise! I'm teaching you a research technique.
That's funny.
And the interesting thing is, I know that some people will be able to do this on their own, and that's why I wanted to take them through the process. And I know other people would probably rather just have me do it for them. So for me, it's just like, this is how I approach it. This is how I figure out what the messaging is and how it can be in your own words and your own voice. And if you can do that for yourself, or you and a friend can do it together, awesome. More power to you.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that came to me as I was reading the book is that, I mean, clearly what we've been talking about today is messaging for people with businesses, people who are entrepreneurs who have a message that they want, who want to create change. But you know what I was thinking about? I think that even if you don't have a business, even if you just go to the office and work every day for somebody else, that you can have a 3-word rebellion and that it can be very powerful.
I agree. And that is like, I didn't write about it in the book, but as I've been getting to know this concept more and more, I could see how people at work could have their own 3-word rebellion. So people knew what they're about, but it also kind of serves as a mantra for you as you do your work in the world. So I feel like that could be like a follow-up book to this, or an addition, like an addendum to this book. But yeah, I've often thought about it because I know when I see my clients find their own 3-word rebellion, it often becomes like a mantra for their lives because, we're never as people, we're never totally separate from our business. We spend so much time with it every single day that it kind of makes sense that a message that you resonate with, that you care deeply about, that you want to be a steward of in this world would serve on a personal level as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just really want to encourage everyone who's listening, even if you don't have a business, this is a really worthwhile idea to check out and implement in your own life, because I feel that no matter how you're bringing in your financial income, we are all here for a reason. Like, we all have a purpose in being here. And it's almost like this is like the succinct way of describing your purpose.
Yeah. Yes.
And I just love that.
Oh, I really appreciate you seeing that and seeing the potential in what the 3-word rebellion can become, because I've felt that. I've never really talked about it, so this is a first too.
Yay.
But I have felt that for a long time, that you could create one of these no matter what, whether you're an employee, whether you're part of a small team, like you could have a 3-word, like a team could have a 3-word rebellion, an organization, a person. And I think that's really the power of it, because it does keep us focused on what we're creating in the world.
Yeah. The other part of my job is I play in a symphony, which is a nonprofit. And even as I think about this, I think, gosh, all nonprofits should have a 3-word rebellion.
Yes, I would agree with that too. I think nonprofits would be served well to have one.
Yes. I mean, I just think that it's such a powerful idea to really, it's a tool for discovery. It's a tool for discovering who you are. And then once you've discovered that, it's a tool for sharing that with other people. So it's just multifaceted and such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm just so proud of you, Michelle.
Oh, thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. So your book that you've been hard at work at, I just have a digital copy because it's before we're recording this before it's been released. But can you tell us a little bit about the book? Because as a book lover, there is so much that I love about this book, and I haven't even held the hard copy in my hands yet.
Yeah, so the book, which I actually just got the proof copy like right before we recorded, so I'm holding it in my hands for the very first time. It's beautifully designed. There's a lot of space in here to do the journaling exercises, because I mean, I will be honest, I've bought. So
We know what you mean.
yes, I've purchased so many like beautifully designed books, and I've always been attracted to beautifully designed books. And then I don't use the book, and if you don't use the book, you don't get the transformation. So in this book, I like give the book and I give you permission to like write all over it, like break the binding, pour wine on it, doesn't matter. The book wants to be used. And so in the book, there's lots of exercises to help you find your 3-word rebellion, to help you step into your leadership, to help you figure out like how to promote it. And it's very well designed, and it's meant to be interactive. And one of the decisions I made with this book is I decided not to actually do a Kindle copy of the book. I decided to just do it in print copy because I think if you have it as a Kindle, you are not going to do the exercises. And I want you to find your 3-word rebellion. So for me, yes, it's beautiful and well designed, but it is meant to be interactive. It is meant to be used and scribbled in and to fit in your bag and to take with you to coffee shops to write in it.
One of my favorite things is every now and then the book will tell you something. Like the book will say, I'm very sad that you haven't written in me yet, or something like that. And I just love that because I do feel like books have souls, and that, like I feel sad for books that haven't been loved or read. And I just love that comes through in your book.
Yeah, it's so strange, but I do feel like I'm in a relationship with this book. Like, yes, it came through me, but like we have a relationship. Like even in the writing process, I would talk to the book. Like if I got stuck on something, I'd be like, ooh, book, what should I do? Like, I'm not exactly sure where to take this next. Or even in the editing process, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I see that this doesn't really make sense. Book, do you think we need to delete this, or do I need to write more? Luckily, the book likes to be succinct, so it was mostly deleting. Like, yeah, we don't really need that, Michelle. You can definitely delete it. But it's so strange because I do feel like this book has its own energy, its own soul to it. And so that's why I let the book talk to you.
Yeah, I loved it like that. I just loved that part so much. So the beauty of the 3-word rebellion in my heart and my mind is that it's taking our powerful inner voice and it's encouraging us to listen to it and then to use what it says. And clearly you have a deep connection with your own inner voice. And I'm curious to know in your life right now what your inner voice is saying to you or asking of you.
I think it's asking for a lot of trust and to open myself to receiving, because I normally try to really control things. Like before we jumped on, I was mentioning that on Amazon, they don't let you pre-order print-only books that are self-published. And that threw me off. And then I was like, no, it's fine because this book wants to be out in the world and we're going to get it out in the world. And I don't need to do a pre-launch period like every other author. And so just kind of trusting that the book can be just as successful as we want it to be, even though I'm going to be doing I'm doing a rebellious launch, right? An unconventional kind of launch, and just trusting that every single person who needs this book will find it.
I 100% believe that, Michelle. You don't need to follow a formula. You've got it. You've got this, girlfriend. So for those of you who are listening, why don't you let them know how they can get the book? Because this episode will be released either on or a few days after your book release. So it is available now?
Yes, yes. So it will be available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And also, if you're listening to this within the first couple of weeks, you can go to, or anytime, you can go to drmichellemazur.com/book, and there'll be some information on how to buy it. And in the first couple of weeks, I'm going to give some nice little bonuses. Like, the only way to get a PDF version of this is either A, to interview me, or to buy the book like within the book launch period. So that's one of the little bonuses I'm going to give people. But yeah, I would love it. The book and I would love if you would purchase a copy on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. We would really appreciate it.
100%. And I will put links to all of those places in the show notes so you guys can click right through your podcast app, go get your 3-word rebellion book, because this is something that you do not want to miss out on. This is an amazing tool, and I'm so excited to be able to share this with you guys. So, Michelle, thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your joy. I feel joy, so much joy here with you today, and I'm really thankful for that. And I am just really excited to see what's going to happen when people start creating their 3-word rebellion.
I am so excited for that as well, to witness that ripple effect out in the world. Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me on the show.
Wasn't that great? You guys better believe that I worked out my 3-word rebellion, and actually I'm still working at it. I did all of the journaling prompts and I loved it. So if this was something that really interested you, I encourage you to go grab the book and use it, write in it, and just let your passions flow out and really start to get clear on your calling and your message. Because when you do that, it feels so right. Do you know what I mean? It just feels right. And another thing that feels right is me just sharing with you right now how grateful that I am for you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of my world and In Her Voice and all of the things that In Her Voice stands for. And I just want to encourage you to go take a look at my website. I have a lot of new fun offerings. I have my Overcoming Perfectionism course, and as well as my Tapping into Inspired Potential course over there for sale. And I'm also doing a new kind of coaching called Inner Voice Coach in Your Pocket, which I love, you guys. I love it. And it's so fun. And it's like having an inner voice coach in your pocket. It's through Voxer, and it's a great way to stay connected, to stay accountable, and to really create practices and habits and transformations in your life that are centered around listening to your inner voice. If you are ready to live by that, instead of living by all of the shoulds and by how everyone else is doing it or by comparison. And man, does that ever get exhausting, right? If you are ready to live in a new way and to really hold yourself accountable to that, inner voice coaching might be right for you. So if this is something you're interested in, while you're at my website, you can also sign up for a discovery call, and we can talk about what it looks like and feels like to work with me as your coach. And you can find all of that at kellycovert.com. And of course, the links are in your show notes. So as always, I want to remind you, yes, you were born for a reason. You are here on purpose, with a purpose, to be you, fully, authentically you. You are worthy.